Welcome to First National Bank's Coach's Corner with Tony Tone and Muscatine High School football coach Jake Mueller. Listen online at vintage931.com or on your smartphone with the free Vintage Sound app. Let's start the show.
Oh, yes. Hello, friends. It's First National Bank Coach's Corner, the September 15th installment of the program with Muscatine Muskie head football coach Jake Mueller. I was just telling Coach off the air, I was in Wilton last Friday for bike night. I'm listening to the game coming down 38. I can hear the rain. That's how hard it was coming down. But what didn't happen is the storm didn't really escalate, and there were no delays, correct?
That is correct.
Oh, boy. And I know that because you've told me this numerous times over the years that you're the kind of guy that you really don't want to have to, okay, maybe the game is delayed, but we want to get back to it. We don't want to have to push it to a Saturday.
No, none of that.
Right.
That's no fun for anybody involved.
Because it's got to be tough to, you're almost like you have to reset your team. And that's rough. And you don't have to do that early in the season.
No.
Especially with the way that game against PV was going last Friday. Mm-hmm. So the question that I have, Coach, is that when the conditions are like that and it's raining, downpour, whatever you want to say, as far as your offense is concerned, do you become, because you have a heck of a run game, do you become a run-heavy offense, or does it not affect the pass?
Well, it depends on how good of a job our ball boy Doc Calvert does of keeping the balls dry. He did a really good job last week, so if the ball is dry, even for a play, we can throw the ball just fine. So, we're fortunate to have a talented quarterback that can throw the ball. And so we didn't really change the game plan all that much at that point. Now, had it continued on, then the field condition gets a little sloppy and it gets a little bit tougher. But at that point in time in the second quarter when it came, we were still able to function pretty much doing our normal offensive game plan at that point.
So this game, again, a non-district game, but a tough opponent, and there's a little bit of you wanted to win last Friday. After last
I always want to win.
Well, yeah, but after last season, right? PV might have been on the count, might have been circled twice, and probably for a lot of players that were coming back.
Yeah.
So you come away with a win, and it's a great game. Listening to it, and I should have come because you're right, it didn't rain in the second half. It would have been fine to go watch it. And there's a lot of people that stayed, by the way. Troopers.
Yeah,
right.
Especially our student section. They're great. Looked up the stands, and they're all still there. So we really appreciate the fans that did stay and supported.
What were some of the things that you took away that your team did well at last Friday? Because and I am not a coach, but just as a listener, it seemed like from even the start of the season, this team is very talented, and each game they just continue to either come together more as a unit or they're making tackles. What was your perception leaving the field Friday and then leaving Friday and then into meetings? What were some pros from last week?
Yeah, like you said, there are quite a few of them. I think one of the pros was being resilient, and we got down I think early, and we just kept playing. It didn't really bother us. It was a tie ball game at halftime, and then our defense shut them out coming out of the second half, and our offense scored 2 touchdowns. So dominating essentially the second half. That's something that we can be proud of. Making big plays when we needed to. We got a few turnovers, caused turnovers defensively. That was, tremendous job by our defense doing that. I don't want to get into this too much, but there were some other factors besides the rain that were working against us during the game. And so I was
I know what you mean.
Our kids handled that well.
Yeah.
If you watch the game on the replay at all, or anybody, you can see there was some things that we had to work through, and I thought our kids did do a great job of that. And I was proud of them because there were certain times where it was just like you couldn't believe that it had happened again, but we just kept on working through it. And so I really proud of the way the kids handled that. And, I thought another thing we can point to was our tackling, especially in the second half, was much improved. A lot of people ask, what was the difference between the first half and the second half? I feel like our kids did a better job of, like, the pursuit angles to the ball and breaking down and not running by. We were so concerned about flying to the football in the first half, which we did a good job of. They have some really good athletes, and they did a good job of cutting back. And so we maybe were there to make the play, and we just ran by them. And so in the second half, I felt like we did a much better job of breaking down and tackling. And once we did that, we did a really good job of shutting them down in the second half.
Is that, and not to dwell on it, but is that second half and the conditions, it's not raining, so the field, like you said, it doesn't deteriorate, it probably makes it a little bit easier. You're not slipping as much, so those tackles are being made as opposed to going for a tackle, losing a footing, and then there goes a running back or wide receiver or whatever. So you're almost like, hey, thanks, Mother Nature. You got helped out a little bit.
Yeah, right? It helps. But they play on the same field as we do,
right?
Everyone's got to adjust to it.
Yeah. And I think it's important what you said about some of the things you couldn't control, because that can be a tough thing to coach. Emotions are an important part of life and sports. And again, these are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, and you don't want them to run hot, but you don't want them to run cold. And you have to just, in an instant, right, tell them to kind of just let's move past what we can't control and focus on playing the game. But that's a tough thing to process for someone that's, again, 16 to 18 years old.
It is, and especially what's difficult is like when you teach a kid how to do something and they do it exactly how they're taught,
right,
and it doesn't work out for them when they performed the skill that you asked them to do and did a really good job, and it didn't work out for you.
Yeah.
So when that happens, like that is tough to move on from. But our kids did a really great job of it. And I'm fortunate to coach great kids who are mature enough to handle that, and just I think our coaching staff did a good job of just telling them to move on to the next play, and our kids responded.
Well, and they can trust that with yourself and your staff, that when you're showing them things, and like you said, they're learning the right way to do things, that even though if they executed something properly, that they didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. You did everything fine.
Yeah, we'll go back. Right? We always go back on Mondays, and we watch the film from Friday night and show the good things and the bad things. And, some of the things that we do cover are a penalty. So if there is something that a kid did wrong, we show them, why they were called for that penalty. And, and if it was something where, maybe they didn't do something wrong, we kind of talked through that as well. So.
No, I think that's important, and it's part of the game. And again, these are young guys, and it's only going to set them up for success if they continue to play sports or just in life. I mean, dealing with things that you can't control, you just got to get over.
It happens all the time.
Right?
All the time. Yep.
Sometimes
it's a good life skill.
Sometimes it happens at a red light camera, for instance. I don't know. All right, listen, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back. First National Bank Coach's Corner with Muscatine Muskie head football coach Jake Mueller continues in minutes right here at Vintage Sound.
At First National Bank of Muscatine, we believe in making the home buying process as simple as possible for our customers. Hear why Adam Thompson chose First National Bank for his home loan.
Buying a HUD foreclosure home can be difficult, but First National Bank was easy to work with. They gave me the loan to buy the home, and they gave me an additional loan to fix it up as well. I get asked all the time where I got my home loan from, and I'm proud to say I got it at First National Bank.
See the new real estate team at First National Bank to get moving today. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You're listening to First National Bank's Coach's Corner on Vintage Sound 93.1.
Oh, boy. All right. It's a great reference off the air. And that's where it'll stay, everybody.
That's fine.
All right. It's Thursday morning, 8:21, Vintage Sound 93.1 FM. Tony Tone, Muscatine Muskie head football coach Jake Mueller. A good win over Pleasant Valley in the elements, and, there's a good chance that you might see a little rain tomorrow night as well. I don't know if you've been looking at the weather.
I try not to. I was in a good mood until you told me that.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if it's going to rain in Eldridge, okay? Well, I mean, that's where North Scott is the opponent tomorrow. And there's a chance for rain tomorrow and tomorrow night a little bit. It could just come through Muscatine. You might not even have it up there.
I like that report a little bit better.
Yeah, that's good.
whatever happens. Like you said, we'll take what's in front of us and we'll deal with it and we'll handle it and we'll be fine. North Scott, they're one of the few like us schools that doesn't have field turf, but their grass field is it's a really high quality grass field where it looks like a professional field sometimes. Like it's really nice. So even when it rains, it'll be fine.
Yeah, it absorbs well, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
So this is a formal. This is like a former MAC showdown, right? A former MAC opponent, North Scott. How are they doing in 2016, record wise, and then some players you'll have to watch?
Yeah. So they are 1-2.
Okay.
They won last week against Davenport Central. They lost their first 2 games of the season. However, probably their best and most talented player did not play in the first 2 games.
Okay.
He's a 225-pound wrestler who has committed to play or to wrestle at Nebraska. Mm-hmm. So he starts on the D line and offensive line. So obviously an impact player that they didn't have for 2 games. So he changes things for them. And week 3 they look like a lot better team than they did earlier. So he's back. They have 4 kids off their defense from last year that started, and I think only 3 on offense. So I know the kids by numbers more than I do by names, but they got a free safety, number 25, who I think is Rollinger kid. He's a pretty good player that we'll have to be accountable for. But North Scott always is a tough team to prepare for as far as our defense goes.
Sure.
And their offense, they do some similar things to how we play on offense. And it's similar a little bit to preparation for PV. It's not a veer triple option like Pleasant Valley, but it is an option team where almost on every play they have an option to run the ball or throw the ball, or run the ball and throw a screen. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be very gap sound, very disciplined, knowing your assignment. And so a lot of the same principles that we used last week against Pleasant Valley are the same. It's just a little bit it's going to look a little bit different. So it's a tough prep for our defense.
Sure.
And then offensively, we've got to continue to get better. We know that their defensive front could pose some problems for us. So, we've got to make sure that we match their physicality.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge for the offensive line, which, again, is good because this is all building to district play, which, by the way, happens next Friday against Bettendorf at Bettendorf. So another great tune-up, if you will. Of course, you want to win the game tomorrow against North Scott, but getting ready for a team like Bettendorf, you got to prepare in any way that you can, obviously watching tape and stuff. But a North Scott opponent that maybe has some strengths that the previous opponents didn't, that'll be a good test for the defense, and the same thing for the offense. I mean, if they have a tough defensive line, then your O-line will hopefully look good tomorrow and then carry that with them, because I'm assuming Bettendorf's good.
Yeah,
right?
They are.
It's like I don't even know what to say. It's just a program that always does well, and it's not a slight, and I'm certainly not a Bettendorf fan, but they've just been good for like 25 years. So they just have like a crop of kids, apparently.
Yeah. Yep.
But it would be great to not only beat North Scott and then go to Bettendorf and start off district play with a win, obviously. That's what we want.
Yeah, for sure. And since the beginning of the season, we've talked to the kids about having tunnel vision and focusing on each practice, getting better at each position group, and then focusing on the opponent this week and this week only. And so that's what we're doing right now is we have tunnel vision on North Scott. They're the opponent that's next up on our schedule, that's in front of us, and we're going to go at them. And then when next week's here, we'll have tunnel vision towards that game as well.
I love it. So North Scott tomorrow, Bettendorf next Friday, and then the Friday after that, by the way, homecoming.
Yeah.
Right? If my math is correct, just like that.
Yeah, we can talk about homecoming that week, too. We don't need to talk about that right now.
I know. So leave that
I know
alone.
other people like to do that, but,
No, we can leave it alone. Yeah. It's so far out there yet. It'll be here quick.
Yeah, it will be here quick. That's no doubt.
It's crazy. North Scott tomorrow. Muscatine on the road at North Scott. Listen on our sister station, KWPC, AM 860, FM 95.1. The voice of Muscatine, Brian Musell, and Jimmy Miller will have the call. Always entertaining coverage with those guys. They do a good job, don't they?
They do a great job. Very insightful, and I hear a lot of comments from some of my friends who listen across the country. They're always telling me about how entertaining the broadcasts are online.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The Jim Miller-isms are great. North Scott, Bettendorf, and then homecoming, but one step at a time. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Muscatine Muskie head football coach Jake Mueller. Muskies in action. Are you ready for football? I hope the answer is yes.
Oh.